Razor has no ties to ASP.NET MVC. Because Razor is a general-purpose templating engine, you can use it anywhere to generate output like HTML. It's just that ASP.NET MVC has implemented a view engine that allows us to use Razor inside of an MVC application to produce HTML. But as I said, it's a general-purpose templating engine. That means you'll have a template file that's a mix of some literal text and some blocks of code. You combine that template with some data or a specific model where the template specifies where the data is supposed to appear, and then you execute the template to generate your output. In a sense, this is very similar to how ASPX files work. ASPX files are templates. They contain literal text and some C# code that specifies where our data should appear. We execute those to generate the HTML for our application. But unlike ASPX files, Razor had some different design goals. Microsoft wanted Razor to be easy to use and easy to learn and work inside of tools like Visual Studio so that IntelliSense is available, the debugger is available. But they wanted Razor to have no ties to a specific technology like ASP.NET or ASP.NET MVC. If you're familiar with the life cycle of an ASPX file, then you're probably aware that there's a dependency on the ASP.NET runtime to be available to parse and execute those ASPX files. Razor has no such dependencies. Finally, Microsoft wanted Razor to be smart, to make a developer's job easier. Here's an example. This is a code snippet from an ASPX file. It contains some literal text, which is our HTML markup. It contains little bits of C# code here and there. But these web forms were basically repurposed by Microsoft to work with the earlier releases of MVC, meaning ASPX files were never a perfect match for MVC. The syntax is a bit clunky when you need to transition from C# code back to HTML and from HTML code back into C# code. You also are prompted by IntelliSense to do things that just don't make sense in an MVC project, like add directives for output caching and user controls into an ASPX view. This code snippet produces the same output, but it's using the Razor syntax. Notice that the Razor syntax, you can begin a bit of C# code just by using an @ sign, and the Razor parser will automatically switch into parsing this statement, this for each statement, as a bit of C# code. But here, when we're finished with the for each statement, we have our opening curly brace, we can transition from C# code into HTML without putting an explicit token in there like the % and the angle bracket signs. The Razor parser is smart enough to switch between C# code and HTML, and again, from HTML back into C# code when we need to place our closing curly brace here. If you compare these two blocks of code, I think you'll agree that the Razor version is easier on the eyes, it's easier to read, and as I'm about to demonstrate, it's also easier to write.